A hand slices cinnamon rolls, the first step in a long day ahead. Inside Cinnabon, workers serve customers, unaware of the man watching them. Mike Ermontrout stands beside a mixer, his mind elsewhere, not on baking. The mall stretches wide, quiet now, but soon it will buzz with life. A man in an apron pours drinks, his eyes scanning the crowd for someone. Snow falls hard outside, blanketing the street, hiding what's coming. A blurry Statue of Liberty flickers on a screen, a symbol of false hope. The judge sits silent, hand on chin, waiting for the case to begin. A woman sips her drink, bored, as the courtroom waits for action. A bailiff watches from the back, ready to step in if things turn ugly. The courtroom fills, people settling in, expecting a routine hearing. Jimmy McGill stands before the urinals, planning his next move. He turns to the jury, hands open, ready to spin his story. Jimmy gestures toward the judge, making his case with calm intensity. A lawyer takes notes, focused, not trusting a word Jimmy says. Jimmy faces the jury again, his voice steady, his eyes locked on them. The room watches, some leaning forward, others glancing at their watches. A man rises, walks to a screen, about to show something crucial. He flips on the monitor, revealing footage that changes everything. The judge stares at the screen, his expression unreadable. The room holds its breath. Jimmy McGill paces outside, deep in thought after court. He climbs into his car, eyes scanning the street. Jimmy spots a scene under the overpass, cars parked tight. He watches two men digging, a yellow marker on the ground. Jimmy joins Kim Wexler and a man at a diner booth. The man argues, gesturing wildly at Jimmy across the table. Jimmy leans in, speaking calmly but firmly to them. He rises from the booth, adjusting his jacket with purpose. Jimmy drives away, hands gripping the wheel tightly. A skater waves at him, helmet on, ready to roll. Jimmy stops, watching two skaters near a yellow car. One skater lies on the ground, the other holding a phone. Jimmy steps forward, arms wide, addressing the skaters. He walks into a dim hallway, heading for the elevator. Jimmy enters Hamlin and McGill's sleek lobby. He approaches the reception desk, briefcase in hand. Jimmy bursts into a boardroom, arms raised triumphantly. He stands before a table of silent, watching lawyers. Jimmy slams his fist on the table, making his point. The room falls silent as he stares them down. Jimmy sits at the conference table, making his case to the firm's partners with sharp gestures. He raises a finger, stressing his point as the others listen, their faces unreadable. Jimmy leans back, his tone shifting as he tries to sway the room with his words. He pushes his chair back, the meeting clearly not going his way, and stands up. Jimmy walks away from the table, leaving the others to watch him go in silence. He confronts another man in the hallway, his voice low but his stance firm. Jimmy turns away, the conversation over, his shoulders tight with frustration. He stands alone in the dim hallway, breathing deeply, trying to steady himself. Kim exits the building into the dark parking garage, her heels clicking on concrete. Jimmy joins Kim in the garage, both of them leaning against the wall, silent. Jimmy paces away from Kim, pulling out his phone, needing to make a call. A car drives down a quiet street at night, its headlights cutting through the darkness. The car pulls up to a dark house, the only light coming from a single window. Jimmy enters the kitchen, turning on a lantern, his movements quick and purposeful. Chuck hands Jimmy a document, his voice calm but his words heavy with meaning. Jimmy takes the paper, his eyes scanning it, his expression unreadable in the dim light. He folds the document, his hands trembling slightly as he processes what he's read. Jimmy leans over the desk, his voice urgent as he questions Chuck about the paper. Chuck sits back, his reply measured, but his eyes betray a deep unease. Chuck stares into the dark, his voice dropping as he reveals something he's been hiding. Jimmy argues with Chuck in a dim room, papers scattered. He demands answers about his career. Chuck sits back, calm. He claims Jimmy's methods are the problem, not his own actions. Jimmy stands frustrated. He refuses to accept Chuck's version of the truth. Chuck rises, walks to his desk. He pulls out a small object from his pocket. Jimmy watches, tense. Chuck holds up a tiny recording device. The betrayal is clear. Chuck hands it over. Jimmy takes it, stunned. His world just cracked open. Jimmy stares at the device. He realizes Chuck has been spying on him all along. The screen cuts to black. Silence hangs heavy. Jimmy's trust is shattered. A young man holds a camcorder. He's filming Jimmy, who's about to pitch a wild idea. Jimmy crouches in a suit, hands out. He's trying to convince skaters to join his hustle. He speaks fast, passionate. He needs them to believe he can make them famous. The skaters listen, skeptical. One shrugs. They're not sold on his plan yet. Jimmy points, intense. He promises them exposure, money, and a real shot. He leans in, earnest. He needs their help to pull off his next big con. A skater rides past on a bike. Jimmy watches, hopeful. His plan might just work. They pile into a car. Jimmy drives, focused. The hustle is officially underway. A teapot sculpture sits on the dashboard. It's a strange symbol of Jimmy's odd world. They walk down the street. Jimmy leads, full of energy. The con is in motion. He talks to the skaters again, gesturing wildly. He's selling them on the dream. He smirks, confident. He knows he's got them hooked. The game is on. Two skaters wait at a street corner, ready for Jimmy's plan to begin. A station wagon pulls into a quiet suburban driveway, unseen by its owner. One skater steps onto his board, preparing to roll into action. Cafe patrons eat outside, oblivious to the hustle unfolding nearby. The skaters look up, spotting their target and signaling Jimmy. Jimmy drives, phone to ear, plotting his next move with focus. A skater calls Jimmy, confirming the mark is in position now. Jimmy yells into the phone, frustrated by a sudden complication. The skaters rush toward the parked car, executing the plan. An elderly woman steps out, startled as the skaters approach. Jimmy slams his car into gear, racing to the next location. He leaps from his car and runs toward a house, urgent. Court credits roll, hinting at the legal chaos to come. The screen cuts to black, leaving the outcome in suspense. Inside, a man tells the skaters he heard a strange noise. The skaters try to calm the woman, confused by the situation. The man leads them toward the stairs, suspicion rising. He turns away, hiding something from the young men. A car's license plate reads LWY or UP, a clue for Jimmy. The woman sits alone, the weight of the day settling in. An elderly woman watches from her hallway as chaos erupts downstairs. A man rushes down the stairs, telling her, "Let my Joe take care of it." He sits on the steps, phone to ear, as credits roll behind him. Jimmy Miguel stands outside, smiling faintly at the front door. The man ushers Jimmy inside, stepping past hanging coats. They sit facing each other as the man speaks urgently. From the stairs, the woman calls down, "You can't let it dry." Jimmy listens, his face calm as he considers his next move. The man stares ahead, gripping his dog, tension thick in the air. Jimmy gestures subtly, trying to calm the situation. A gun presses against Jimmy's chest. He doesn't flinch. Jimmy backs into a cluttered garage, hands raised, still talking. The man stands over a body on the garage floor, gun in hand. The desert stretches wide. 2 vehicles and 4 figures stand apart. Jimmy glares up at the man, voice tight with defiance. They stand in the open, the sky vast above them, no escape. The man leans in close, whispering threats to Jimmy's face. Jimmy meets his gaze, jaw set, refusing to look away. Jimmy kneels in the dirt, facing a man in a bold patterned shirt. The man crouches, smirking, as others watch from behind. Jimmy kneels in the desert, surrounded by men. One glares down at him, ready to strike. 2 bodies lie motionless on the ground. Jimmy stands, facing the group with no backup. A man in a patterned shirt yells at Jimmy. His voice echoes across the empty field. Jimmy stays on his knees as the man towers over him. A red case sits nearby, open. Jimmy raises his hands, trying to calm the man. He speaks fast, desperate to survive. 2 men lie face down in the dirt. Jimmy stands, gesturing as he talks to the group. The man in the patterned shirt listens, his face unreadable. Jimmy keeps talking. Jimmy leans in close, whispering something that makes the man pause. He's buying time. Jimmy steps back, still talking. He's trying to turn the situation in his favor. The man in the patterned shirt walks away. Jimmy watches, relieved but not safe yet. Jimmy keeps talking, hands open. The man turns back, holding a knife. Tension rises. Jimmy points at the bodies, then at the man. He's making a deal, not begging. Jimmy looks down at his hands. He's shaken, but he's still standing. He survived. The man in the patterned shirt shoves another man. The group starts to move toward the van. Jimmy turns away, head down. He walks slowly toward the van, still processing what happened. Jimmy helps one of the men into the van. He's not a victim, he's in control now. Jimmy sits across from a woman in a dim restaurant. He smiles, but his eyes are tired. Jimmy leans in, speaking softly. He's charming her, but his mind is still in the desert. Jimmy closes his eyes for a moment. He's exhausted, but he won't show it. Chuck McGill stands alone in a dark room, holding a lamp. He's watching Jimmy's every move. Jimmy sleeps on the couch as Chuck quietly enters the dark room holding a lantern. Chuck leans over Jimmy, checking on him before moving to the desk to work. Chuck walks through the dim house, his steps slow and deliberate, avoiding noise. The room is silent. Only the faint glow from the window breaks the darkness. Chuck sits at his desk, pulling out papers, his focus unwavering in the quiet. He arranges his notes and coffee pot, preparing for a long night of work. Jimmy stirs, groaning softly as he shifts on the couch, still half asleep. Jimmy wakes up sitting at the desk, talking to Chuck, who's wrapped in foil. Chuck listens, wrapped in foil, his posture stiff as he faces Jimmy across the table. Jimmy leans forward, speaking urgently, his voice rising with frustration. Chuck stares back, unmoving, his response calm but firm, unshaken. Jimmy adjusts his tie, standing alone, his expression tense as he prepares to leave. He walks down the courthouse hallway, briefcase in hand, heading for court. Jimmy places a pink stuffed animal on the counter, smiling faintly at the clerk. He stands before the mirror, practicing his courtroom stance, fists clenched. Jimmy stands beside his client in court, hands clasped, waiting for the verdict. He looks down, disappointed, as the stuffed animal sits forgotten on the counter. A yellow car drives away from the courthouse gate, leaving the lot empty. The camera moves through dark, narrow hallways, shadows swallowing the light. Jimmy stands alone in the empty restroom, staring at the sinks, silent. Jimmy grabs a coffee, already scheming his next move. He walks with a client, flashing a smile, but his mind races. He hurries downstairs, late for court, desperate to impress. Jimmy stands alone in court, arguing passionately for his case. He drives off, frustrated, knowing he lost despite his best. A cup gets crushed, mirroring Jimmy's shattered courtroom hopes. He slumps in his tiny office, surrounded by clutter and defeat. Jimmy dials a number, voice tight with frustration and need. He flips a chair upside down, venting anger at his situation. He lies back, staring at the ceiling, holding a glass of water. He stays put, exhausted, the weight of failure heavy on him. Jimmy adjusts his tie, preparing to face another day's grind. A man in red enters, interrupting Jimmy's quiet moment. Jimmy sits up, ready to hear what the visitor has to say. He listens, a small smirk hinting he sees an opportunity. Jimmy locks eyes with the man, calculating his next play. He speaks carefully, testing the waters of a risky deal. Jimmy gestures, selling his idea with charm and nerve. He leans in, confident he's turning his luck around now. The man nods, agreeing Jimmy's hustle just paid off. Jimmy watches a nail salon through beaded curtains, plotting his next move. The credits roll, hinting at the gritty world to come. The Sony logo fades, setting the tone for a dark tale. Chuck McGill adjusts his glasses, deep in thought about his brother. A guard escorts Jimmy to a jail visitation room. Jimmy sits across from a man in a red jumpsuit, ready to talk. Chuck stares at Jimmy, his expression unreadable. Jimmy leans forward, speaking urgently to his brother. Jimmy smiles, trying to charm Chuck despite the tension. Jimmy argues passionately, his hands bound by handcuffs. Jimmy continues pleading, his voice rising with frustration. They stand, the visit ending with unresolved tension. Jimmy gestures wildly, his frustration boiling over. A close-up of scales, symbolizing justice or its absence. Bubbles rise in a glass. A quiet moment before chaos. A nail salon glows at night, Jimmy's next target. Dorian Misek answers a phone, his face lit by red light. Kim Wexler talks on the phone, her voice calm but tense. Jimmy paces in a dim barber shop, phone to his ear. Jimmy holds the phone, red roses on the table beside him. Jimmy McGill makes a late-night call from a barber shop, setting his plan in motion. He holds a jar of coins, ready to pay for his next move under red light. Kim Wexler answers her phone in bed, listening intently to Jimmy's scheme. Chuck McGill sleeps restlessly, unaware of his brother's risky actions. Jimmy slips into a dark storage room, searching for something he needs. He grabs rolls of paper towels, preparing for the next phase of his hustle. A car drives down a dark road, headlights cutting through the night. Jimmy's hand drops coins into a payphone, making a crucial call. He dials the number, his back to the camera, voice low and urgent. He waits by the payphone, checking his watch. Time is running out. Chuck McGill stands in his living room, phone to his ear, pacing. Kim Wexler joins him, both looking concerned about the late call. They stand together watching the front door, expecting someone. A car pulls up outside Chuck's house, headlights illuminating the porch. Jimmy McGill stands in a bathroom, hands raised, explaining himself. He talks to a man in a suit, gesturing as he tries to convince him. The man listens, then turns to the mirror, considering Jimmy's offer. He hands Jimmy a folder, agreeing to the deal despite his doubts. Jimmy drives to a parking lot, stopping at the gate to pay. He hands cash to Mike Montrout, who notes the payment in his book. Jimmy screams inside his car, frustrated after a call. His yellow car drives down a quiet suburban street. He stares ahead, focused on his next move. Police cars block a driveway. Jimmy steps out. He spots the crime scene tape and hesitates. Jimmy talks to a woman, explaining his presence. She argues back, questioning his motives. He walks away from the house, alone. Jimmy finds a payphone on a dusty street. He stands beside it, car parked nearby. He waits, scanning the empty road. He dials the phone, voice tense and urgent. He hangs up, annoyed by the response. He yells into the receiver, demanding answers. He slams the phone down, furious. He listens intently, hoping for a breakthrough. He stands still, the street silent around him. He gets back in his car, eyes fixed forward. Jimmy runs down an alley, desperate to escape. Police tackle him to the ground, guns drawn. Jimmy sits cuffed in a dim room, waiting. He knows this isn't over. A detective enters, pacing. He wants answers. Jimmy won't give. The suspect stares, silent. He won't crack under pressure. Jimmy leans forward, speaking calm. He's playing a long game. The suspect watches him closely. He's sizing up this lawyer. Jimmy gestures, making his case. He's selling a story now. The suspect nods slightly. He's starting to believe Jimmy. Jimmy smiles faintly. He knows he's won this round. The suspect looks down, then back. He's making a choice. Jimmy presses on, voice steady. He won't let this slip away. Jimmy pauses, letting it sink in. He's done all he can. Outside, officers escort the suspect. Jimmy walks beside them. Kim stands nearby, watching. She's not surprised by his move. Jimmy turns to her, explaining. He needs her to understand. Back in the room, the suspect sits alone. He's thinking it over. Jimmy stands in the hall, waiting. He's ready for the next step. He enters a child's room, looking around. He's searching for clues. He finds a shelf, points at a photo. He's piecing it together. Kim follows him in, asking questions. She's not convinced yet. She steps closer, voice firm. She wants the truth, not tricks.